beautiful people, and welcome back to another day of vlogmas. Today I'm bringing you guys the end of the year book tag because we only have like a few more days left until 2024. Crazy to say that, but this video is inspired by Destiny Sidwell. She created like a bunch of questions and put it in her video, so I'm going to be using the same questions that she did, except I'm going to be doing it with my books that I read this year. Thank you, Destiny, for the inspo and the questions for this. There are a little over 20 questions for this, and I'm just going to go through and kind of say like what books kind of fit the questions the best, obviously. But with me, it was very hard to choose just one book or one couple or one author for every single question. So some of these books are definitely repeated. I tried my best to like not say too many of the same things. So we have lots of variety here, but some are going to be the same. Some of them will be rapid fire, and then some of them I will explain my reasoning a little bit more. I'm super excited to get into these questions. I have them all on my phone. But before we get into this, make sure you guys give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, let's just dive into the first question. We're already getting juicy here. The first question is the most disappointing read of the year. I have two for this one. The first one I was super sad about. We have Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This was a very, very big anticipated read for me because Every Summer After is one of my favorite books of all time. I was super disappointed in this. I think it just didn't live up to Every Summer After, and I just wasn't vibing with the whole plot in this book as a whole. It was giving the summer aesthetics, but not in the way that I was looking for, and just I didn't feel very content after I finished reading it, basically. Another really big disappointment was My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warga. I've been wanting to read this book forever, and when I finally did, I was just super, super disappointed. I don't know why. Just something about this book just didn't give me what I wanted. Yeah, I can't explain to you why I was disappointed in this. I think it just wasn't for me. Maybe it was the author's writing, maybe it was just the plot in general, maybe it was the characters, I don't know. Something about it, I just was very put off by it. Next question we have is the Underdog book of the year, and that of course has to be none other than Behind Closed Doors by bday Paris. I am obsessed with this book. I still think about this book every single day, and it was just such a crazy roller coaster of a book in my opinion. Like, this book is definitely not light. It does deal with domestic violence, and it just has that hold on you that you want to see what's gonna happen. You want to see the main character have that freedom and be released from this chaos that she's living in and stuff. So this is definitely an underdog of a book. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's not talked about enough, but I can see why because of how dark it is and how like it's very hard to read with the things that are dealt with in this book and talked about in this book. But if you are interested in that, or you can read stuff about that, then you need to read this book, and it needs to be talked about more. Like, this is the book that Booktok should be featuring, in my opinion. Next question is a book that was overhyped, and Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I just didn't vibe with this book. I think I didn't understand like the POV situation going on in here, and there was just some random characters that were thrown in here randomly. So I was enjoying this because of how fast-paced it was and stuff, but then when I thought about it overall, I just felt nothing after I finished it. Like, I didn't feel content, and I didn't feel like I got a story out of it because it was so all over the place in my opinion, and the plot just jumped from one thing to a completely other thing, and it just didn't make sense in my head, and I felt confused. So that might be like a me problem, but I just didn't like it. Along with the writing, I didn't really like her writing. I definitely think that this book slash author, please don't come for me, this is just my opinions, I feel like she is overhyped. I mean, I'm willing to give her another chance, but I think this whole got too much love, and I just don't see the hype, in my opinion. That's just my opinion though. Fave book couples of the year. Now, it's so hard to narrow it down, to be honest, but I did narrow it down to 3. I just couldn't only pick one. We have Reese and Bridget from Twisted Games. This is by Anna Huang. It is a part of the Twisted series. I am so obsessed with Reese and Bridget. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just their dynamic of like the opposites attract going on because she's a princess and he's her bodyguard and stuff like that. And it's also kind of different because she's like royalty and privileged, and then he's just kind of a nobody to her family and stuff like that. I loved that aspect of it, and not only that, but just their connection. So these two have my heart forever. Also, I could never forget about Lana and Nick from the Mindfuck series. Their dynamic is insane, especially with, if you've read that series, the whole plot and all, like, they have the craziest relationship ever, especially with the situation that they're in. I love them. Lana Myers is one of my favorite book characters ever. Her and Nick paired together just make the absolute perfect book couple, especially when you read the whole series series and then you read the last sentence on the last book and you're like, wow, just wow. And then obviously you guys already know that I'm gonna say it, but Lily and Lo are probably number one always. If I was obligated to choose, it would be Lily and Lo 100%. I'm just so obsessed with them. Their whole series, they are on top forever and ever and always. I won't go into it too much, but they are number one. This question kind of goes hand in hand, but my favorite book characters of the year. Again, a super hard one, but I narrowed it down to just a few, which I'll rapid fire. From Hideaway by Penelope Douglas, which is the second book in the Devil's Night series, we have Banks. Banks reminds me a lot of Lana Myers, and that's why I think I fell in love with her so much, but she just gives that main character badass energy that no one's gonna mess with her, especially once you learn her backstory on like everything that's happened to her in her life, who she's related to. She just is someone who I aspire to be. So I just fell in love with her from the very first page. A very random side character from The Nanny by Lana Ferguson, which is definitely one of my new favorite books of 2023. But we have Wanda. She's like a 73-year-old woman, and she was my highlight in this book. I loved every single sentence that mentioned Wanda's name or something Wanda said. I was here for it. She is the most hilarious old woman. I wish I was best friends with her, like Cassie was in this book. She's definitely the coolest 73-year-old ever in the world. I also loved Rhett from Flawless. He is just that like arrogant asshole cowboy stereotype. He has a really bad reputation of just being such like a mean person and just unapproachable and stuff like that. But once his heart opens up, he is the absolute sweetest. So he is definitely one of my favorite book boyfriends, I would say. And I just loved reading about him, especially seeing him change from being stuck up, very closed off person to being so affectionate and loving and just so cute. We also have Finley and Vero from the Finley Donovan series. Absolutely love this dynamic. They are the perfect partners in crime. If you read about this story, they are the funniest and smartest duo I've ever met, and just reading about them and how they interact with each other just made this whole series for me. Next is a book that surprised me, and this one was definitely Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. I've read a few Coho books. I love her writing and how fast-paced her books are and easy to get through, but this was one that I never thought I was gonna pick up or wasn't really interested in, but once I did and I started reading it, I just fell in love with it. The whole plot just moved so easily and flowed so amazing, and I loved the characters. I loved the settings. It is like a summary book. It was just perfect in my opinion, and the ending just had me loving it even more because my heart felt so full after reading it. And while I was reading it, I was laughing, I was feeling everything for the characters. I just felt so connected to the book, and I ended up really loving it. Next is new favorite authors that I've discovered in 2023. I have three because I couldn't narrow it down, but the first one and one of the biggest ones is Riley Sager. I was very iffy on his books going in. I owned a few of them but never read them, and once I read my first book, I was hooked. His writing is unmatchable to any other author, like psychological thriller wise, that I've ever read or I can ever think of. I'm just so blown away by his books every single time I read one of them, so he has definitely become a very loved author by me. I've mentioned that a few times in my other videos. Along with Christina Lauren, I always viewed their books to kind of be just really hyped up on Booktok and in the book community, so I never really went out of my way to read them right away, but once I read Love in Other Words, I saw the hype by everyone. I just really love the writing, love the settings, and the kind of vibe that their books bring, so they are definitely another loved author by me recently. And then the last one is Freida McFadden. I read The Housemaid by her and I was blown away. I binged that book because it just had me so hooked that I didn't want to put it down, and they're just so fast. Like I just want to binge all of them, every single one that I pick up. Next is the happiest read of the year, and I kind of struggled a little bit to find some books for this one. The very first book I read in 2023 was a Christmas book, There's Something About Mary by Cody Hall. I loved this book. I rated it 5 stars, and for a Christmas book, that says a lot. It made me so happy. The characters were so happy. It gave all the Christmas vibes. Cody Hall is one of my favorite Christmas book authors, I'd say, and I just had such a good time with this. So this was probably one of the books that made me the most happiest after reading. Along with How to Honeymoon Afternoon Alone, which I read on Kindle Unlimited. I picked it up on a whim. I'd never heard of the book before. I didn't know anything about the author. I just found that it was a cute summer steamy read, so I just picked it up and I ended up loving it. It's set in the Bahamas, and just the book couple in it and kind of all the vacation aesthetic of them being completely strangers and then going on a vacation together and connecting in that way, like I just absolutely ate it up and loved it, and it just made me so happy. This is a good one. The most frustrating book you read in 2023. I really could only find two, if I'm being honest here, so that's kind of good, right? First one was One Italian Summer by Rebecca Serle. I did not vibe with this book. I thought I was gonna love it because it's based in the Amalfi Coast, and I just wanted to read it for the summer vibes, but this plot just didn't make sense. It was kind of one of those plots that based on something that wouldn't really happen in real life, or it's not realistic, and I think I just couldn't wrap my head around that concept because I couldn't tell if the characters were actually believing the things that were happening or if it was just meant to be kind of an illusion. I don't know. I was just confused. I didn't like it, and I didn't like the author's writing, to be honest. At that point, I was just reading it to hear about the settings in the book, like when they went and did activities on the Amalfi Coast and stuff like that. I wanted to read about that. Along with Killer Content by Olivia Blackie, I didn't vibe with this. I actually got it in the clearance section at my bookstore, which kind of makes sense in my opinion, but this book also just frustrated me because I didn't see a plot, or if there was, it was extremely small and it didn't really go anywhere. There was not a lot happening. The ending was very, very dissatisfying. Like I felt like I didn't get anything out of it and it just kind of wasted my time. Like that's how I felt after I finished the book. It was just frustrating to push myself to finish this book when I probably should have just DNF'd it. The best adaptation of the year. When I thought back to this, I realized I've only read one book movie adaptation, and you guys probably have never heard of it, but it's Bright Burning Stars by A.K. Small. I read the book and I didn't really like it. I'm pretty sure I rated it just like a 3 or like a 2.75. I wasn't loving it, but then I watched the movie, and let me just say the movie is completely different. I'm pretty sure even the characters are completely different. The movie was so much better in my opinion, and I hate saying that because normally that's not the case with me. I love the book more than the movie or the adaptation, but for this instance I did love the movie a lot more because the movie explained a lot more than the book did. This was kind of all over the place, but then the movie kind of gave me the explanation from the book and I was like, oh, okay, see, now it makes more sense. The longest book you read this year. Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This one is definitely a big one. This one's like 560 pages. I was kind of intimidated going into it, but once I started it, I could not get enough of it. Other than the first one, this is my second favorite of the whole series so far. I didn't mind reading 560 pages of this because I genuinely could not get enough of it. And then the shortest book I read was Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was a short story, so I don't know if that technically counts, but this one was only like 88 pages. I finished it in like an hour and a half and I liked it, but it was definitely not a favorite of mine from Taylor Jenkins Reid considering I've read a lot of her backlist. It was cute for how short it was and I liked the concept of it, but not one of my faves. One of my favorite questions, favorite covers of the year. Sometimes, more often than I should, buy books based on their covers. I'm getting better at that habit, but I have some beautiful covers. First, we have The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. Oh my gosh, just take a second to look at this cover, you guys. Look at the spine, the back, even the pages on the inside are in like a honeycomb texture, which if you read the book, that just connects the whole story together in a way. So this is definitely one of the most beautiful books that I own. Along with Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is like the alternate cover and I'm just so obsessed with it, and it's pink and it fits the book so well. And the last one I'll just quickly show you, Flawless. Obviously, it's purple, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, absolutely love it, and my tabs even match it. I'm just so obsessed with this book. A book that you haven't stopped thinking about. Now, if I'm not gonna mention the Addicted / Calloway Sister series, because obviously that is my number one, I would have to say The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I recently read this and it just threw my whole brain into a spiral. I don't even know how to explain it. I think about this book all the time. I'm still trying to figure out how Riley Sager was able to just trick me like that, and I wasn't able to figure out anything from this book. Like every single plot twist that happened, I didn't guess it. I didn't see it coming. I was completely oblivious. It was insane, like next level insane. promise me you guys won't hate me for this one, but the cringiest book that I read this year, and that has to be Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I go back and think about this book sometimes and I just don't even know what to think of it. Sometimes when I think of it, I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I kind of liked it. And then other times I'm like, this was just a mess of a book. Like, I don't even know why I read it. I don't know my thoughts towards it. So it was just cringy. I feel like that's the perfect word I've come up with to describe this book to you guys. It is cringy. It is a toxic romance, but it is extremely immature. It just was back and forth and back and forth, and it got so annoying, and just some of the things that they would say and do, it was just so cringy. I think a lot of my annotations actually are just me yelling at the characters and me being like ick or ew or why would you do that? So it was just cringe. Perfect word to describe this book. And I'm sorry because I know that book is so loved in the book community, that whole series and universe, but I can't. I'm sorry. An unpopular book that you love. And I read this one actually last month. It's Ecstasy by KV Rose. I read it on Kindle Unlimited. I haven't heard anyone talk about this in the book community, at least the people I watch, but I just ate this book up. It was one of those books that you hated what's going on, you hated the characters, you hated the whole scenes that were in it, but it had that certain hold on you that you couldn't put the book down until the final page. There were a few times where I was so annoyed and disgusted with the characters that I didn't really want to push through it, but it had that hold on me that I needed to know what happened, and I'm genuinely so happy I did because the ending was bizarre. I just loved this book. I definitely think more people should know about it, but it's definitely not a light book either. I would say the most f***ed up book I've ever read. I can confidently say that. Ooh, this is a good question. What was the highest and lowest rated books you read this year on Goodreads, and do you agree? I did check my Goodreads, and my highest was Paint It All Red, which is the last book in the Mindfuck series, and this one's rated 4.57. I don't know if that technically counts because it is a single book in the series, but it is the highest one technically that I've read, so I definitely agree with that. The last book in the Mindfuck series made me cry, to be honest. It's not even a sad book, but I just love the characters in that universe so much that, one, the series is ending, and two, just how St. Abby ended that whole series just was blowing my mind. Like, I feel like she couldn't have wrapped it up any better than she did, so that book deserves that rating, even higher in my opinion. I have nothing bad to say about it, nothing. And then my lowest was Killer Content with 3.17 ratings, and I definitely agree with that one as well. Like I mentioned, it just wasn't for me. I don't see any really pros to that book in my opinion, so I definitely agree with that being my lowest rated for sure. Now this question's kind of hard. It's fave quotes of the year. And I have a whole note on my phone of all the quotes that I absolutely love and adore. So I went through it and I picked 4. So I'm gonna share these with you because they are definitely some of my favorites that I look back on like every single day. So this first quote is from Addicted to You, obviously. It says, "And I suppose the fear of losing each other is always stronger than the pain we cause." Anything by Lilian Lowe, I'm gonna eat it up, let's be honest here. Next one is from Magnolia Parks, which is surprising, but I liked the quote. It says, "It wasn't just what happened, it was an absence of him and the way my life had grown around him like ribs around a heart." That one, I'll give that to Jessa Hastings. That was beautiful. That quote is lovely, just lovely, like ribs around a heart. I just loved it. Ate it up. Next is from Addicted for Now, which is the 3rd book in the Addicted series. It says, "I don't think there's a black and white answer. I think I've been swimming in the gray state of things for so long." Period. Absolutely love. And lastly, this one's from The Girls at 17 Swan Street. It says, "At 17 Swan Street, most questions are really instructions in sweet and buttered disguise." And if you read the book, that just makes so much sense. And that whole quote is just absolutely beautiful. I don't even have words. I just loved all these quotes. I don't need an explanation. It's just, these are the ones that are always in the back of my brain. I didn't really know what to say for this one, but it's a book with the most unique concept. Obviously, I do have other books that had better concepts, but this one was kind of the most interesting to me. And it was Fit to Die by Daniel Kalla. This one I also just picked up on a whim. I didn't know anything about the author or this book, but this one focuses on like these deadly diet pills that are being sold online. And then it's basically the investigation of trying to figure out where these diet pills came from, who's distributing them, and basically trying to put an end to this because people are literally dropping like flies left, right, and center. So it was kind of intense, and I just loved the concept of it because it's kind of realistic. That could happen in real life. You never know. I just really enjoyed the whole plot of it, and it had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Also, how the POVs were set up in this book was insane. I just loved it, and it gave me so much detail throughout the book. This concept I absolutely love. A book that you read that you would want to reread. Now I narrowed it down to 2. The first is obviously Tell Me Lies by Carola Levering. Why can I not say the author's name today? This was also one of the first books I read in 2023, and I still love it so much. I actually tried to convince Julia to read it, and I also convinced my mom to read it. My mom did read it. I don't remember what she said about it, but this is one of my favorite books. It's my favorite toxic romance I've ever read. And honestly, Lucy, the main character in this book, I absolutely feel for her and I feel so connected to her. So this one is definitely a reread. I have been saying that actually. I say it every time I look at this book, is that I really, really, really want to reread this because it just was everything to me at the time, before I found the Addicted series, of course. But another one I would love to reread is The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. I literally just read this, but I already want to reread it again. I had such a good time reading this, like I said. It was just so absolutely funny and heartwarming and gave me everything I wanted. So this will definitely be a reread in a little while because I literally just finished it, so I'll have to wait some time. Okay, reading goal reflection and 2024 reading goals. So I actually didn't reach my goal for 2023 of reading. I had a goal of 75 books and I was pretty far from it, you guys. I am surprised that I didn't fulfill it, but yeah, it just happened. So I read so far, we have 1 week left basically, but I read 56 out of the 75 books that I planned to read or wanted to read. That's okay, honestly, because I'm content with the books that I did read. I feel like I had a good reading year overall because of the books I picked up, not necessarily the amount of books that I picked up, if that makes sense. So I'm sad I didn't reach that goal, but there's always next year. And with that, I probably will keep the same goal of 75 books to read next year because obviously I didn't obtain it this year, so I can't really bring it up, but I do plan on prioritizing reading as a whole more often next year because I truly do love it and it kind of gives me that escape from reality and stuff, and I need that sometimes. Reading is definitely going to be a priority, so hopefully in 2024 that is my main goal, to reach 75 books because I didn't do it this year. And lastly, after 2023 reading, what are you prioritizing in 2024 reading wise? I mainly came up with 2 points for this. One is to branch out and try different genres. I know this year at least, I really got into romance books. Before 2023, I didn't really like romance, but now romance is one of my favorite genres and I read majority romance books. I want to branch out more in 2024. I want to try fantasy. I really do, slowly. So if you guys have any fantasy book recommendations, let me know down below. Maybe some fantasy romance, not strictly fantasy because we gotta take it one step at a time. Fantasy books just absolutely scare me. They intimidate me. So I really want to try prioritizing that. Hopefully I don't go back on my word. Along with kind of steering away from the TikTok Booktok books because yes, that's how I kind of started getting into reading again, but I feel like they get so repetitive. And then the ones that I do find that are not on Booktok or really talked about, I end up loving even more sometimes. Obviously that's not the case all the time, but I feel like I truly have lower expectations going into books when I don't find them on Booktok or something, because if someone's raving about a book and talking about how amazing it is and then I read it, and because we have different opinions, I don't really like it, my expectations were set so high for that book before I even read it, and now I'm disappointed, you know? I feel like I need to really just kind of pick up books that aren't really talked about or haven't really heard anything about. Kind of pick up books because I want to pick them up, not for like any other influence or a reason, you know? I don't think that made any sense and I'm just rambling on at this point, but hopefully it did. But those are all the questions that Destiny has provided in her end of year book tag. I had so much fun with this. Hopefully you guys got a little bit more of an understanding of kind of my thoughts on the end of the year and all the books that I read. My favorite, my disappointments, my new all-time favorites, let's just say, and basically everything. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff you guys know how to do. Let me know how your reading went in 2023. I would love to know some specifics, even if you answer some of the questions down below. And while you're down there, also check out my Patreon to join the Patreon family to see all the behind the scenes and our book club. You don't want to miss out on things like that. But other than that, I really hope you guys are having an amazing, wonderful day. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye! Why is my... Oh no, what had happened? I think we only have a few more questions. By Where did my book go?